Well, hello and welcome to episode 122 of Drink the Movies. I'm Brian here, as always, with Michaela. And Michaela, we are going back to the beginning. Well, to the beginning of John Wick, that world famous assassin, hitman that captured everyone's hearts and minds and imagination. Not mine. I've never seen this movie until like 2 days ago, but I know you have, and a lot of people have. People love John Wick.
People love John Wick for a number of reasons, and we're going to get into all of them. I mean, but it's really hard not to love a guy who loves his dog and gets real mad if you mess with it, right? I mean, there was a whole show
Loves
called
his
Don't
car.
F with Cats, right? I
Loves
mean,
his car. He loves
he loves his
everything.
car, he loves his house, he loves his wife, and you just there are days when you just don't want to kick someone when they're down. John Wick is not somebody to mess with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to mess with John Wick, but yeah, John Wick, it came out of nowhere, really. This Keanu Reeves movie, and kind of blew the world away, and it's spawned. Now we're up to number four. Michaela, we just went and saw number four this week and talked about it over on our patreon.com/drink the movies, and we got our recap on that. But this story just continues to go and go. And what the offset when I saw like the trailer for this, and I heard people talking about this, I'm like, okay, it's Keanu Reeves running around, shooting people. How interesting could that be for four movies worth now? But now that I've finally gotten a chance to watch it, I have to say it is pretty interesting, Michaela. And one of the other interesting things about John Wick, man after my own heart, because he loves himself some bourbon. I love myself some bourbon, and I love this week's cocktail. Michaela, you found this one. It looks pretty fancy, pretty. It really keys in on all the things that makes John Wick John Wick.
Yeah, it sure does.
So we're going to get into all that, but first, why don't we take a quick break and we'll go get all of our ingredients. We'll get some little whiskey stone bullets, grab a pencil, and we'll be right back to whip up this week's cocktail.
So this week's cocktail, I'm really excited about because it really gets the vibe for John Wick down. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
pencils and all, right? If you don't know, spoiler warning.
You're about to know.
There's a whole talk about how John Wick kills people with a pencil. Now we don't see it in the first one, but it's this is a cocktail that I
It
think John would have come out of retirement for.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. The pencil paints a picture
It
in the
certainly
first one.
does.
In the first one for sure. And it's an integral part. It's not really integral, but it is fun in the way that this looks. And you found this recipe, Michaela. It came from the Fancy AF YouTube page, which is a great name for a YouTube page. Rethinking our own name now. So good job on that YouTube page. But Michaela, this brings in the essence of John Wick. I mentioned in the intro some bourbon. John Wick's always having some bourbon. A quick note on the drinks in this first one. There's a bunch of people at that hotel bar having martinis. Those martinis all looked excellent. It's also made me thirsty for a martini. But back to this one. Back to this one. Fancy AF mixes this up. They use some of these little bullet casing whiskey stones. That are there. So that looks pretty cool. There is a pencil with this Amarena cherry run through it, which is really kind of disturbing, but really kind of neat. And definitely it that picture that gets painted in the movie is put into your glass right here, Michaela. But this comes together pretty simple. It's just a little bit of a twist on the old fashioned. And it was really good. I really like the way this one came together.
Yeah, this is really good. So, just for all your purists out there listening in, John Wick, when he goes and he's drinking bourbon, we see him drink Blanton's. We are of humble beginnings here at Drink the
Mm.
Movie. So
Hmm.
we don't know enough people to get us Blanton bourbon because apparently it's harder to get than like I don't know crushed diamond dust. So what we
Yep.
did instead was we picked some other good bourbon. And if you're a bourbon person, you know what you know what you like. I did some Elijah Craig. What did you do?
Hmm. Yeah, Elijah Craig is a really good option. That's one of my favorites for doing a mixed drink, something like an old fashioned. Because even if I had a bottle of Blanton's, I might have, I guess, for science for this episode, I wouldn't have used it for this. But yeah, Blanton's is really difficult to come by. I think I worked in a liquor store for almost 2 years. I saw like six bottles come in then. It's still hard to find. I was just at Buffalo Trace this past over Thanksgiving. They didn't even have it there. So what I used Weller, which is also made by Buffalo Trace, a wheated bourbon. Yeah, the Elijah Craig is good. But yeah, anything that you would normally use for your own kind of old fashioned, whatever your like your house, uh, bourbon or a whiskey or rye is would really do pretty good in this recipe, I think. So what you're going to do into your glass, you can use the whiskey stones, but I would do those, take your picture, or whatever, because that's kind of neat. But then I would still put an ice cube in because you want a little bit of the dilution here. So big ice cube into a rocks glass. You're going to do 2 ounces of bourbon, 2 dashes of aromatic or Angostura bitters, 1 dash of Peychaud's bitters, and then a bar spoon of Amarena cherry juice. Now, if you're having trouble tracking down Amarena cherries, you might have to order those because I very rarely see them at grocery stores, even like the fancy ones, Whole Foods and stuff like that. You can probably find the Luxardo maraschino cherries, which are also very classy and high end, but they have those at most of the grocery stores. So just use a bar spoon of that, and that will get you there too. So put that in, give it a stir, and sip and enjoy. Give us a gold coin for doing good, getting your cocktail recipe, and
That's
and you're
right.
all set to go. But Michaela, old fashions, that's something we've done a couple times here on the show, and different twists on them, and talked about them in lobby bars and stuff like that. But I don't know, that bar spoon of cherry juice and that little kind of hint of sweeter notes from the Peychaud's bitters. This was really lovely.
Yeah, it is really. I'm not a I'm wouldn't have ever said that I was a bourbon girl, right? But I have to say that I really like the way this came together because, again, if you want it a little sweeter, you can add an extra spoon of cherry juice if you would like it to be. I really liked the way um, that the Angostura bitters kind of brings out this orangey, zesty kind of mouthfeel to it.
Hmm.
I don't know if it was the Angostura bitters or not, but mine was just really luscious and very boozy. Yeah, this is kind of I think you should have a martini rule for this one, because more than two, and you probably definitely don't drive. Please drink responsibly, because it's very bourbon forward. But if you like bourbon, this is amazing, and I love at the end of the drink. What I did was, obviously eat the cherry off of my off of the number two pencil, and it
Mm,
was kind of
hmm, hmm.
like if you'd soaked up if you put that in the drink after kind of looking at it and thinking how pretty it was, it soaks up some of the bourbon as well, and that's
Hmm.
really tasty. Yeah,
Yeah,
this
it's
was
all,
good. I loved that it was so simple.
yeah, the cherry is really delicious, and a really delicious kind of treat at the end. It's almost like candied in a way. It's really really lovely. So yeah, definitely give this one a try. Especially if you're a fan of old fashions, just twisting it up a little bit here. It's really good, and like I said, definitely captures the tone of John Wick, and pays homage to his favorites. I just got finished watching John Wick 2, and they go back and forth at the bar. Oh, you're a gin guy, and he says, oh, you're a bourbon guy. Absolutely. So mix one of these up. Let us know what you think about it. Send us pictures, all that good stuff. But for now, Michaela, we need to go back to the starts. The 2014 John Wick, getting ready to take over the world, Hitman style, I guess. I don't know for sure, but let's take a quick break, and we will be right back to chat about this week's film, John Wick.
Evening, John.
Evening, Jimmy. Noise complaint.
Noise complaint. You working again?
No, just sorting some stuff out.
Oh, well. I'll leave you be then. Good night, John.
Good night, Jimmy.
Spoiler warning for John Wick. If you've not yet seen this film, you should press pause. You should go watch it. You should go make yourself a fancy AF John Wick bourbon drink that we've just discussed. And then you can come back and we can chat about it because we're going to talk about all things John Wick.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk all about John Wick, and spoiler, 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 spoiler. Right in the IMDb, it says an ex-hitman comes out of retirement to track down the gangsters that killed his dog and took his car, and that is exactly what happens. So there you go. So I really love that they didn't even pull any punches there in the synopsis of this movie, but you still need to watch it. Because it's great. So this was released in 2014. It was directed by Chad Stahelski, and apparently David Leitch might have also done some directing on this. Not credited there, but according to rumor, that's the case. This stars, of course, Keanu Reeves as John Wick, the retired assassin who has been trying to move on with his life. Get over mourning his ex-wife. So that's John Wick there, and there's a bunch of other people that we're going to meet. Some adversaries, some allies. But want to make sure that we make mention here of Lance Reddick, who's playing our hotel concierge there through all the John Wick films, who just passed away this past week. So rest in peace, Lance Reddick. Has done a bunch of incredible things, popped up in all of just these amazing things, was in, The Wire, was in Lost, just all of these things, and a critical part of this John Wick franchise. So rest in peace, Lance Reddick. Do you have any favorite Lance Reddick roles or memories? He was, like I said, he was a gentleman that just popped up in everything and was always awesome, always this great presence and things.
Yeah, I really loved him in The Wire. I thought he was amazing. I thought he was great in, gosh, he touched so many things. So I think the first time I ever saw him was in a movie called I Dreamed of Africa. That's the first time I remember seeing him, which by most accounts, not an amazing film, but he was amazing in it. And I remember being very transformed by the way in which he carried himself in the show The Wire. The Wire, as if you've never heard of it, it's definitely worth your time. It's on HBO. It's a series, and it has been hailed as like one of the best series of all time by a lot of people. It's been incredibly critically acclaimed. He was also in Oz, which is another HBO series that is amazing. And it was around in the late 90s, and it's also really good. He was awesome, and I'm very sad. So I'm going to try and hold it together as we talk about this movie that is where a bunch of people die. And he is like this consummate like character in all of the John Wicks. We haven't seen the fourth one, spoiler, but in 1, 2, and 3, he's like this thing that holds that this underground hotel together that's full of kind of deplorable hitmen and women all over, and he just seems like a total BA,
Yeah.
And so we're gonna miss him a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's get into this a little bit, Michaela. So the movie starts up. We see John Wick there. There's this SUV. It's rolling very slowly and then crashes into this wall. John Wick crawls out of the car, bleeding to death there on the street. He pulls out his cell phone. He starts watching this video of him and a woman. You're assuming that it's his wife. This actually looks really great. As Keanu Reeves is kind of smearing like blood on the screen of the phone there. I think that looks really cool, and you're like, what is happening? I just watched the trailers for this. John Wick is he is the boss. He doesn't get shot by anyone. What happened? We don't know, but we're about to find out, because we're going back in time to the beginning of our story. We see a very, very cool Mustang driving around town. John Wick is there. He pulls in to get some gas, as you do, but runs into some jokers that are speaking Russian, decide that they want to take his car, and John Wick says, nope, car's not for sale. They say something, he says something back to them in Russian. They're a salty group, but John Wick goes home, to mourn the loss of his wife. We get to learn a little bit more about that, Michaela.
Yeah. His wife, her name's Helen, played by the really, really beautiful and talented Bridget Moynihan. She's awesome. And you see a video that he keeps kind of looking at of them on the beach, and you can see a little bit about their life together. I guess they were only married a short time. They've been together about 5 years, and John Wick had left a life behind. You don't know much about it at the beginning, but he had left a life behind to be with her, and then she had fell ill and had some sort of long-term illness. So we don't know exactly what happened, but he kind of had to watch her die and was very just despondent, but she knew him well enough to know that he would need somebody and need something to take care of and to love, to kind of keep him to be kind of centered to the world. So on his doorstep, a courier delivers a very cute little dog. They named Daisy. It's a little it's a little
beagle. It's a little
beagle.
Mm-hmm,
and she's looks like she's very sweet and probably the best puppy that I've ever seen in my life, because doesn't have any accidents, just is quiet all the time. John Wick seems like somebody who doesn't deal well with the trifling of dogs, and but they seem to get along okay. But it's really bad because the dog is only there for maybe a couple weeks before this Russian guy and his posse break into John Wick's house and try to steal his car. And it doesn't go down well, because John Wick is like, I'm not okay with you trying to steal my car. So they get roughed up, and then John Wick kind of gets incapacitated, and then they do the ultimate, which is they kill little Daisy, and it's really awful.
Yeah, it is really awful, and it's kind of neat, I guess, that John Wick's wife had the forethought of sending him this puppy, kind of on her own deathbed, because she knew he was going to need something to help process her own death. And we start to learn a little bit more about John Wick and kind of who he was. He was this hitman. He worked for this, I guess, kind of Russian mob sort of thing. We don't get a bunch of his backstory, and that's kind of one of the neat things about this series, is that you get to learn a little bit more about him as we go through this. But we learn that he's kind of retired from this life. He's given it up, he's moved on. But when these kids who decide that they want to come and steal his car turn up and kill his dog and steal his car, that's all bad. So, and the kind of head of this is a gentleman by the name of Losif Tarasov, who's played by Alfie Allen. You probably know him from Game of Thrones. He was terrible in Game of Thrones. He was terrible in this. Don't be stealing people's car, and definitely don't be killing poor little Daisy. But I like kind of the symbolism of John through this section, is he's got kind of this little Daisy bracelet that Helen had worn, laid there on his nightstand, and then now, of course, the collar of Daisy on the nightstand there as well, really kind of giving him his motivation for what's about to happen, because Losov takes this car into the chop shop. And the owner of the chop shop there, who's played by John Leguizamo, by the name of Aurelio, says, "You done messed up, Losif. Get this car out of my sight right now."
Yeah, he's like, "I don't want to die today." I know that car, because of course, apparently, of course, I don't know. I'm not in the Russian underground mob. I don't know. But when you steal a car, you got to go to a chop shop and get it all, get all the special marks taken off of it and get it to where you can drive it, and no one's going to stop and say that it's a stolen car. And Aurelio is like, "Hey, I know the owner of that car. Did you kill him?" And of course, Losif's like, "No, but I messed up his dog." And he's like, "Oh, even worse. Great. Get it out of my sight." And when your dad, because of course Losif is like, "Wait till my dad hears about this." And he says, "Well, you tell him that you just killed John Wick's dog and stole his car. And I don't think your father is going to be really pleased." And of course he's not. His father is Viggo Tarasov, played by Michael Nyqvist.
Yeah.
And amazing. He does a really good job of being real mad. And that's when we learn who exactly John Wick is. Because he's not just any kind of person who lived a seedy life in the past. He was like the assassin's assassin. They called him the Baba Yaga, who you would go to kill the boogeyman. You would hire John Wick and he would go do it. And he was really good at it. And now you've really made him mad. So congratulations, Losif. You've, dumb ways to die.
That's right. You done messed up. I really like, because Aurelio yells at Losif, tells him to get out of there, and then Dad calls Aurelio later and is like, "Did you yell at my son in front of everyone?" He's like, "I absolutely did." And Viggo goes, "Why did you do that?" Because he killed John Wick's dog. Which Viggo is like, "Oh, okay, good call."
Yeah.
Let me get my son in here. I'm going to yell at him too. You've got Dean Winters as this guy, right hand man. He's playing a character by the name of Avi. I can only ever see him now as the Mayhem insurance character, so it's fun to see him anytime he's acting in anything from now on. But yeah, the stage has been set. John Wick, mourning the loss of his wife, has this run in with these wannabe mobster kids who decide to steal his car and take his dog, and all bets are off as we see John Wick go down into his basement, takes a sledgehammer to the floor, and starts literally unburying his past, which is pretty great. There's about 10,000 guns in there. There's a bunch of these gold coins. We don't know what the story is with those, but we're about to find out because John Wick is ready to get going. But, Vigo is a man with a plan. He says, you went and you stirred up this Baba Yaga, John Wick. That was a bad idea. We better go get him before he gets us. He sends about 100 people to his house. But John Wick is, obviously not one to be trifled with. He quickly dispatches of all of these people. John Wick has an amazing house, by the way, Michaela. I love John Wick's house. I wish I could live at John Wick's house and have John Wick's car. Apparently, being a hitman assassin pays pretty good.
Yeah, it pays pretty good as long as you like minimalist furniture, because there's very clean lines in his house, and he makes use of those lines. I mean, he kills all of them very, very efficiently. And then he calls in a reservation, which at first you're like, why is he reserving dinner? I don't understand. But in the underground, there's like a whole system of people that you call and ways to talk to each other and currency that is exchanged in these gold coins. And in comes this gentleman who's got a team of people who just get rid of all the bodies and clean all the mess. And then his house is back to being pristine and very clean lines again. It's very, very interesting. We can talk a little bit about the set direction, because I think it's really, really well done, given the budget constraints that they have for this first film. But, Vigo realizes that he sent an army, and he probably should have sent more, or gotten more realistic with what was going to happen, because now John Wick is even more angry and he's even more determined. He goes to Aurelio. He's like, I need another vehicle. Obviously I'm not going to be able to just let this go. And so he's off to where would you go? I guess as an assassin, you would go to your old stomping ground, which is this really cool hotel called the Continental in the middle of New York City. And he's going to go and figure out where Losif is so that he can kill him.
That's right. Yeah, he goes to the Hotel Continental. I also really like that after he kills everyone at his house, this police officer shows up and just looks, and he sees like a dead body behind John. He just says, are you working again? And John's like, yeah. And he's like, okay. And he leaves because the police officer knows don't mess with John Wick either. So absolutely. So he gets to the Hotel Continental, which is really cool. You still don't really have a whole grasp on this stuff, right? But he gets there. He's talking to the Lance Reddick's character and says, I need a room, and he hands him a stack of these little gold coins. They get him set up to his room, and we start to learn a little bit about kind of the inner workings of how this underground assassin hitman club, the organization, kind of works, right? You go to the Hotel Continental. It's like a neutral ground. No fighting is allowed there. No talking business there. You just go, you get what you need. It's like a good safe house kind of place, more or less, in this very fancy hotel with this very fancy hotel bar, which looks really cool. See people in there drinking martinis. John Wick goes up and gets himself bourbon, which has a handwritten note from kind of the head of the assassins, I guess, Winston, played by Ian McShane, who's really great. Sends over a little bit of a note because John Wick's doing a little bit of poking around, and you're not really supposed to be doing any business, but Winston, I think, kind of knows that John Wick is in the right here. He'd been trying to do his best to move on, so he gives him a little nudge in the right direction to go find Losif and deal with this kid who killed his dog. Don't be mean to dogs.
That's right. And I want to talk about that because I was terrified. I mean, they were very clear when you go see this film. It's in the previews, right? They kill a dog. And so I was a little concerned that it was going to be overtly violent in that area. And that really bothers me, as it probably bothers a lot of people. And so that part was it wasn't as gory as I was afraid that it was going to be. So I was grateful for that. But we more than make up for it, because the next scene, they go to this Red Circle Club, and I want to talk a little bit about the kind of the sets and the design of it, because they picked in New York City, they didn't have a lot of money, so they picked a lot of different places to have the interior and exterior shots. And this Circle Club looks like it's 3 levels, right? There's like this weird bathhouse spa in the basement with like these really beautiful looking pools. And like there's a girl who's like giving everybody tons of drinks and everyone's having a great time. Then there's the club area. And then there's like multi levels of this club, which looks really cool. And John Wick just kind of goes in and starts shaking things up to get Losif, and you know, there's a lot of glass breaking. There's a lot of very angry kind of Russian mob folks that are trying to that Losif keeps putting in front of John Wick as fodder for him, and it doesn't go well. It's really well designed, I think, from a choreography perspective. I have no idea how they shot this part of it. It's one of my favorite scenes, because you watch how John Wick kind of goes through all of these layers and levels, and what they were very different places. So when they put it all together, it just kind of redefines and reopens the idea of what good editing can do, because it really makes it look very seamless and very clean. I mean, you just have a lot of respect for how amazingly efficient John is at killing people.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of people there, right? Yeah, Vigo has, about 1,000 of his henchmen there, kind of trying to protect Losif as, John Wick is going through moving it. And that was kind of one of the standout things for John Wick, right? That really set it apart from other action films and action adventure films at the time, was just this kind of seamless edit of him just having these really long, prolonged fight scenes, as he's going through, kind of this 3 levels of this club, fighting, I don't know, like 100 different people and dispatching of them and having these, lengthy fight scenes. So it's a testament to kind of the forethought for how that's going to work, for the choreography of it, for the stunt work of it. It's really, really very impressive. From a stance where this, could have been, a very generic kind of story, but, it prolongs it and shoots it and treats that stuff in such a way where it's really almost like mesmerizing as you're watching him go through this. So so he has kind of this fight at the club. He goes back to the hotel. He has a run-in with another assassin by the name of Miss Perkins, played by Adrienne Palicki. She's there. You're not supposed to be doing any assassinating, any hitwomaning at the hotel, but she doesn't care. She doesn't play by the rules, apparently. So she's going to go and try to kill John Wick. But that doesn't go so great for her. But she eventually gets the runaround from there, gets out of the hotel before she meets her untimely end. Spoiler at the end there, but John Wick is still on the trail. He is going after this kid, but unfortunately for John, he ends up getting captured himself. Right, Vigo gets the drop on him. He gets taken in, bound to a chair, and John is about to lose his life, but luckily he has a friend. And who doesn't want to have a friend like Willem Dafoe playing Marcus? I want to be friends with Willem Dafoe.
Yeah. I mean, I love this character, and I love their relationship, because Willem Dafoe has, he was originally asked by Vigo to take out his friend, John Wick, and he says yes. But when he gets the opportunity, he always gives John Wick a bit of a heads up that something's happening. So, for example, when Mrs. Perkins breaks the rules and tries to kill him in his hotel room, Marcus is there to let him know, that fires off a warning shot so he can plan. And it doesn't go well for poor Marcus at the end, because he does help John Wick kind of escape this. And I love it, because he's like, look, you guys don't understand. You've killed my dog. And it was the only thing of hope that I had left. And now I just don't care. I'm going to burn the entire city down if I have to. I'm coming for your son. You guys keep asking if I'm back, and I'm back, and I'm real mad. It's like, I'm back and I'm pissed off. I mean, it's so great. It's like the action hero movie, right? But Marcus does end up having to pay the price, because, of course, Mrs. Perkins tips off Vigo that this whole time, Marcus has been kind of helping out, even though he's supposed to have tried to kill John Wick himself. And so Vigo ends up going into Marcus's house and torturing him while he's on the phone with John Wick. That's a bad idea. You shouldn't do that.
That's right. Yeah, that is a bad idea. Don't do that. So everything's kind of coming to a head. John Wick, with the assistance of Marcus there, is able to escape his captors, finds out where Losif is hiding out, goes to kind of this next safe house, quickly kills like 20 more people there, en route to kill Losif himself, get his vengeance, before, ultimately, figuring out where Vigo is, right? He knows that Vigo is tortured and now killed Marcus, which makes him mad. He was probably going to let Vigo go, right? He really just wanted to kill Losif. But now Vigo has done and messed with the wrong guy. He has pushed his buttons. He has sent people after him for no good reason. You could have just turned over your kid and that would have been that. But I guess Vigo is a protective dad, and he's getting ready to get out of there. He said, you know what? Get me a helicopter. I'm leaving town. That's the only way to get away from John Wick. But luckily he gets one more tip. So John Wick goes and has this final kind of encounter with Vigo. They have an all-out brawl, which leaves John Wick stabbed and Vigo dead. So that's going to get us to our end part of the story. Basically, Michaela, John Wick has literally gone through and killed everyone. His friend Marcus has died. Miss Perkins dies because she broke the rules at the Hotel Continental. Don't do that. She goes into this very cool looking a plaza sort of thing with all these pillars around it, and she walks in to talk to that head hitman guy, Winston. He says, you also done messed up, Miss Perkins, and 8 people pop out from behind these columns, shoot her down. So literally everyone in the story is dead except for John Leguizamo, who knew better at the beginning of the movie, said don't mess with John Wick. And John Wick is alive, but just barely, because he's back in that car right where we saw him at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. And this is a scene where you don't know, because if you didn't know that there was a second one, and then the first, when it came out in 2014, you didn't know there would be one. So you're like, oh, is this it? Is he going to die? Because he's bleeding all over his phone. It looks really cool. The rain's kind of pounding down and he's looking at his phone, and it's his wife's video, and he kind of slumps over, and then you hear her say in the video, come on, John, let's go home. And I don't know, it kind of wakes him up, and he's a resourceful guy, John Wick. It's probably why he's still alive. So he goes into like this vet shop, like this old
animal shelter.
Yeah, it's an animal shelter. And they have, they have needles and threads and staples, and he puts himself back together. I don't know what that gun thing was. He puts it on his belly.
It's a staple gun. He's stapling his wound closed.
His wound shut. Yeah,
cleans it out, staples himself closed, gets a new dog, and goes home.
Yeah. He gets a dog that's a little bit more threatening than a beagle, though. Perhaps the pit bull is the way to go. Really sweet, beautiful looking dog, and it was about to be euthanized. So before anybody says that, hey, he stole another dog, he didn't. They were going to kill the dog, so he saved it, and now that's his new best friend. And then you see them kind of walking together in the moonlight, and you don't know what's going to happen next.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. That's where it ends. It ends right there. It could have been a one and done story of, this revenge from John Wick, but obviously it propelled on a bunch more John Wick stories. So, yeah, I don't think anyone really saw this coming. Like I said, Michaela, I never saw this until like 2 days ago when I watched it for the first time. And if you would have asked me anything about it, I would have said, oh, it's about, Keanu Reeves, and he snaps and goes and kills everyone. And that's kind of true. But that description doesn't really explain why there's a John Wick Part 2 and Part 3, and why there's a John Wick Part 4 now, and there's apparently like 2 spinoffs and potentially a John Wick 5 still coming on its way. But Michaela, did you watch this back close-ish to 2014 when it came out? Were you on this John Wick train all the time, or what were your thoughts about it? Having a little bit more experience with this franchise than me.
Yeah. So I heard about this film about a guy who gets his puppy killed, and he decides to go on this massive rampage of revenge. And I'd probably heard about that in like 2011. I did not realize that it was going to be John Wick and that it was going to star Keanu Reeves or anything like that. So when it came out, I was like, oh, I remember hearing about this. I hope it's good. And then I saw it and was like, oh, this is a lot of fun. I love I loved that we had a feeling that there would be a second one, and I love what they've done, what they do with the, you know, second, third, and now fourth one. We're gonna talk about the fourth one in our Patreon, so I'm not gonna do any spoilers here, but I really like the tip of the iceberg that this started, because I did love the look and feel of this. I loved the idea of this underground world that we as like normal human beings don't see and don't have any awareness of, and that there could potentially be these total assassin like people who just walk around and, you know, live in this underground world, and where they have things like magic coins that'll get you anything, and all of that. I loved that aspect of it, and I thought it was really gritty. I loved the kind of the neo-noir aspect of the way it was filmed. I just thought it was really a sharp film, and I'm not a huge fan of shoot 'em ups. These kind of action thrillers, they're not usually my thing. I'll watch them once or twice, but I find with John Wick, because there's some principle around it, you know, and it sits differently. When you're looking at it, and I wouldn't say that it's like the most, you know, it's not got Oscar winning acting or anything in it, but it's very well done. All the actors really stand up beautifully. And some of the dialogue is really awesome. So I think that's probably why it did as well as it has. And I don't know, because we haven't seen John Wick 4, but I don't know how they're going to fill the hole that Charon is gonna leave now that Lance Reddick has passed. That's I don't know, so don't tell me if you know what happens in the fourth one, but if there's going to be a fifth one, I don't know what they're going to do with that character, because I just can't imagine anybody else playing him.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that's handled in the fourth installment when we go and see that. But yes, same as you, Michaela. Like I said, I'd never seen this until a couple of days ago, so I kind of knew about it, you know, peripherally. Obviously, there's been, you know, 3 outs up until this point, the fourth just being released. So I knew that obviously there was enough to the story that, you know, made it worthwhile for people to keep going back to it, and I knew that people really, really liked it. And yeah, there's something very kind of special about this first movie. It's the budget is, depending on where you look, is between like $20 and $30 million, which is, you know, not no budget by any means, but that is pretty low budget, especially when you look at the people that are in this, right? Keanu Reeves, Michael Nyqvist, Willem Dafoe, Dean Winters, Adrian Palicki, Bridget Moynihan, John Leguizamo. So that's a pretty, you know, star-studded cast for something to be that low budget and still look as good as it does. The way they were able to use kind of these sets and the way that they did the set design on all these places to bring these places to life, the way they made his house look, and the way they could, the way they lit it at night for that first kind of fight scene was great. There's a scene at the beginning of the film where he's at his wife's funeral, and it is just pouring down rain, and, you know, Keanu Reeves is just standing there with an umbrella. That looks spectacular. I really, you know, really liked the way that it looked, but the reason for me why this was so special was because it's going into that underground bit of, you know, the hitman assassin group of the world, and they do a really good job, because sometimes when you get stuff like that in movies, they'll really try to explain what's happening. Like, they'll have John Wick say, "Oh, I need to grab my coin so I can go pay for all this stuff," but they don't. They just let kind of this world be shown to you, and you have to kind of put the pieces of how it's working together, right? They just show it working. They don't explain how it's working, and that's really neat. And that's something you kind of get more into, obviously, as you go into the, you know, second and third installments. You're learning a little bit more about the way that world works. But I thought that was really great. Really interesting way to tell a revenge story, other than, you know, just John Wick snaps, grabs a couple pistols, and goes and kills everyone, right? There's this whole like layer of how this world works, which I think is really, really great. So I'm very excited to go and see John Wick 4 now that I've, you know, finally caught up. I've finally seen the light of John Wick, to go and see these and see how this fourth one, because by all accounts, people that I've seen, you know, online that have seen it, kind of the reviews for it, is supposed to be really good. So I'm pretty excited about it, Michaela.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, this was just the tip of the iceberg, and we're going to cover more of it. I don't think I could expand on it any better than you did. I love this whole world that you bring us to. I mean, we talk about, how Star Wars created a world and how Harry Potter created a world, and there are all these other kind of worlds that we can dive into. This was a real fun kind of adult playground, where the rules, like there are, we talk a little bit this week about Dungeons and Dragons and what the rules are of the game. This was kind of like that, in that someone screwed up, they did something really bad, you wanted to have righteous anger and seek vengeance, and right the world, and you really didn't care that it was done in like really violent overly assassinated ways of killing people. It wasn't over the top violent, it was just violent because there's a lot of people that he kills, and so yeah, I like it, and I think that it'll be interesting to see how they're going to cash in on this a little bit, because obviously now, if you got a story that works, people are just going to milk it for all that it's worth. And I hope that they don't milk it to death, because I think there are some interesting stories in this underground world that could be told. And I'm excited to see more of that. But I just, we got to make sure that things have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we're not 15 years where John Wick's 87 still trying to avenge a dog.
No, keep going, avenge that dog, as long as you want John Wick. That's my official stance. So so that's John Wick. It's a little tricky to talk about because it's literally 80 of the 90 minutes is just him going on this rampage at the end of the film there. But it's really great, and it's definitely worth watching, and I'm very upset that I hadn't watched it until now. So let us know in the comments if you've seen John Wick, what your thoughts are about the franchise. If you went out and saw John Wick 4, what your favorite entry of it is. Let me know why I'm terrible for not seeing it earlier than 3 days ago. Let us know what your favorite kind of dog is, because dogs are the best for sure. And let us know if you make one of these old-fashioned riffs that we got from the FancyAF YouTube page there. Let us know that. Take pictures of it, send it. You can put it on our Discord or tag us on all the social medias and things like that. It's at Drink the Movies on Instagram and Twitter, and facebook.com/drinkthemovies. You can see pictures of ours with little ice cube bullets, hopefully, on the website, which is drinkthemovies.com. You can go there for episode recaps, pictures, all of that good stuff. And we mentioned it a couple times, but we're on patreon.com/drinkthemovies if you want kind of our bonus episodes and bonus content and stuff like that. So we've got a lot of fun stuff going on over there. Next week, you're going to want to make sure you tune in, because we're covering something completely different. Next week, Michaela, we're talking about Singing in the Rain. I don't think there's any assassinating in Singing in the Rain. I haven't seen it in a while, but I don't think so. I think
we try to assassinate Lila Lamont's voice in Singing in the Rain.
Wow,
because I can't stand him.
Hot take from Michaela for sure. But yeah, Singing in the Rain, that's coming next week, so you're going to want to make sure you listen to that one. That one's a classic of classics. So Michaela, if they want to check out Singing in the Rain, where should they get subscribed to us?
You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Good Pods, anywhere where I guess the Spotify anchor pods are distributed. We would love it if you would subscribe. We have 2 drops a week generally. And if you're liking what you're hearing, tell your friends, leave us a 5-star review. We're really excited because we get the best job in the world. We get to talk about movies and drinks all day. Join the community. We'd love to hear what you have to say. We'd love any insights, any movie requests that we haven't already done, or hot takes of yours on a movie that we have covered. Send us a note. Join our Discord.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Do all of those things. We definitely appreciate it, and it helps get the Drink the Movie stuff out there. So, Michaela, I guess with that in mind, I still have to watch John Wick 3. We're going tomorrow to see John Wick 4. So, I still have a lot of a Hitman, John Wick style to get through before we go. So we better wrap this up. So, Michaela, I don't know. Don't be mean to dogs.
Don't be mean to dogs. I mean, there's a whole reason not to do any of the things. Don't steal anything that's not yours.
That's right.
Don't be part of the Russian mob, especially since I really don't think that this underground world with special coins exists. And that would be the only reason to really do it, is if that stuff's kind of cool. Yeah. Be nice to dogs. And we'll talk to everybody next time on
Drink
the Movies. Good night, John. Night, Jimmy. It's like the most normal thing in the world for a cop to be like, dead body behind you. Okay, that's cool. It's cool, man.
Okay. You back to working? Dakota's dog, 0 stars.